Hi, I'm Scott Schneider. This is Stereo Niche. And this week we're going to revisit putting together a theoretical vintage system with a budget of $2,500. Stick around. All right, so let's talk about our theoretical budget and system for this week. So I kept mulling over the budget for last week, and $1,000 is a pretty tight budget to put together a system and have a lot of variety. But it's doable, and we showed that last week. So this week I was continuing to think about what would that next clip be? What would that next budget be to do another video? And what would it take to sort of give you a lot of options? So I decided to go with 2,500, and that price or that budget, you get sort of a good kind of a sweet spot because you get a lot of different things available to you in that price range. So in that theoretical budget, I put about $1,000 on the speakers, and I gave that a budget of $1,000. And then for each in this case, I went with an integrated amp instead of a receiver, and then a turntable. So in each of those, I gave it $750 each, and I think that gives you a lot of selection out there. Knowing obviously that you're going to be limited because, again, I'm suggesting that you try to buy things in person and buy them locally. But even if you were to try to have something shipped, I think it still gives you a good bit of options to have something shipped. For speakers or for an integrated amp, I would not recommend trying to have a turntable shipped unless you're very confident that the seller knows what they're doing. They're just such delicate units. In most cases, I think you should assume probably not going to make it to you without some damage. Just because shipping is hard, on a turntable, and packing is so hard for them. But in any case, if you're able to find everything locally, then I think this gives you a lot of flexibility. On speakers, it takes you up quite a bit of an upgrade here because there's just a lot of great speakers that are in that, I'll say, 800 to 1200 price range. There are a lot of options out there, and a lot of options that have been updated a bit, refoamed, recapped, etc., refinished. I think there's a lot of speakers out there in that price range that you can find and be extremely happy. Same with integrated amps. There's a lot of integrated amps out there. You can consider tube or you consider solid state, and you can really look and see which one fits your needs best. And I think it gives you a lot of assortment. And on turntables, you can certainly find some exceptional turntables at a $750 price point. They're out there, and I think if you take a little bit of time and you're in an area that has at least a somewhat good population, I think you should be able to find quite a few selections out there that are pretty stellar. So I want to go through some of those. I've done just like I did last week. I just went out and found some things that have sold in those price ranges to give you some idea of what you could find if you were to search online and buy locally. That so if you were in those areas where these were sold, you could have gone by and picked them up and avoided the shipping cost for one, but also the possibility that they could have been damaged during shipping, which is really the key here. It's not as much saving on the shipping as much as it is trying to prevent things from getting damaged. So let's jump into that, and let me walk you through what I found online. So as a reminder, here is the budget for our $2,500 vintage system. On the speaker side, we're going to budget about $1,000 plus or minus a bit. On the turntable, $750, again, plus or minus. On the amplifier, also $750, for a total of $2,500 for our theoretical budget. Well, starting us off is a set of Klipsch Heresy. Now these are the Klipsch Heresy 1s. Looks like they've had some upgrades for some Kreitz capacitors. A lot of Klipsch Heresy out there, and I think if you were interested in a pair, you could certainly find a set online and local to you. So would be a good one to consider if you're familiar with the Klipsch sound. It is a little unique, but a great vintage speaker to seek out. Here's a set of Bozak Symphony. Bozaks are relatively, large speakers. Even though these are from 1971, they sort of have this style all the way back into the 50s, and it's a rather large speaker, but it has a sort of a laid-back sound to them. A lot of fans for Bozak, and this looks like a really nice set. These sold for something best offer of $900, so just a little bit under our budget. Acoustic Research AR3A, a vintage classic for sure. The speaker that sort of made the acoustic suspension, put it on the map, and a lot of great speakers out there in this time frame from the 3A series, very well regarded. So if you like, a really iconic set of vintage speakers, you can certainly look for these. Now this is probably in the lower end of the range. They do tend to go for a bit more, but in this case here was something that was less than 900. Allison speakers. Allison, I missed a set of these Model 2s quite a while ago, but a very well regarded vintage speaker. They have a very interesting look to them with this sort of angled format, and they're vertical speaker, and very cool. I mean, everyone that I've ever talked to that's owned them has raved about them. This one was just a little bit over budget, but if you could save a little bit on your other categories for the turntable and the amplifier, you could certainly squeeze that into the overall budget. Mitsubishi Diatone. Now Diatone is they're sort of their high-end brand, and very well regarded. You don't find them very often, but just about any Diatone I've ever seen is a very nice speaker. And I think most of these were probably imports sent over here or brought over here, maybe through service personnel. I don't know. I don't think they had much of or any footprint for the Diatone brand. But if you find a set, just know that they're a pretty well regarded brand from Mitsubishi. Now here's a set of fully refinished and restored KLH Model 5. Just a little over budget, but just an example of, you can find some nice vintage speakers that have been restored and don't need to do any restoration yourself. Model 5 is a classic, and if you're looking for a vintage speaker, it's one of those, like the Acoustic Research, just fits right in the center of what many of us consider, a vintage speaker from late 60s, early 70s time frame. All right, moving on to turntables. So when you're getting up to this price range, not a surprise, you're going to see some Thorens at this level. And here's a nice TD160. You can't go wrong with Thorens. Tried and true turntable, very well built, still can get parts for them, and just a solid table. Doesn't have a lot of the features, flashy features for like a fully manual table, but if you want something that is very stable and will last another lifetime, you just can't really beat a Thorens. This is a really nice looking turntable. I've missed this is a Sansui SR838. I missed one of these a couple of years ago, and I have a couple of other models, lower models of Sansui, but I'd really like to find either one of these, 838 or I think it's a 929 models. They're just really cool looking to me. Anyway, here's an example for $785. Again, a little bit over budget. You could, if you find a good deal on some speakers, or an amplifier, could put it in here. But great example of a turntable in this category or this price point. Here's a Pioneer PL540. I've seen this quite a bit. A lot of folks it's typically a gray base, and folks will put real veneer over it. And I think that comes out really looking very nice and really cool. And that, it's been done here. And it's got a Pickering, looks like a Pickering cartridge on it, and looks in great condition. So, essentially it's somewhat been gone through. I'd assume if they've gone to the trouble of putting veneer on it, they've tested it out and made sure that everything's working. But really nice looking turntable here. Here's an Optonica. Now Optonica, if you're not familiar with the brand name, that's the higher end line from Sharp. Sharp, for a period of time, introduced the Optonica line as a step up and a step above what the Sharp offering or brand name was putting out. So they produced some really cool gear, and this is one of them. This has a stone. I don't know if it's granite. But I think it's a natural stone, because there is going to be a man-made stone we talk about in a minute. But the Optonica turntables, especially this one, are very nice. I've seen a couple of these. I've not owned one, but that stone, of course, gives it some heft and makes it pretty solid. So this one, let's see, $797. Looks like it was marked down, from a higher amount. It was on sale. But anyway, a little bit above our theoretical budget, but something, we probably could have squeezed in. Now here's the one I was talking about as far as man-made materials. This is a Kenwood KD570, and it has a stone-like base as well. This flint, that top white layer you're seeing there, it's a man-made sort of granite, if you will, very dense, beautiful tables, very solid. And these are, I've always heard great things about them. I've not been able to acquire one myself, but a very nice turntable to consider. And looking at this, it looks like it came in well under budget. Now, amplifiers. Starting off in this case with a Yamaha 810 integrated amplifier, 688, so a bit under our budget, but this doesn't look much different than the ones that are currently being released, and huge savings here compared to the price of those, which are several $1,000s. But look at that, it doesn't look like it's from the 70s time frame. Here's one from, I think this is around 1983, 84, perhaps. Can't recall off the top of my head, but the Sansui AUD707. These are great, amplifiers, and have a little more functionality than other earlier models. Wonderful amps if you're able to find one of these, but this one came in at $695. This one also is from Japan, I noted, but if you can squeeze in the budget and get the pricing, still, something to consider. Here's another Yamaha. This is the CA1000. Again, it's just a classic, and you could have had this one for just a little under budget, although this one does come out of Canada. So you may have had a little, if you're Canadian, of course, it's local to you perhaps. And so you could pick it up there and, have a nice integrated amp from Yamaha and be well under budget. Here's a Marantz example, the 1060 integrated. Does have a wood case, and looks like it's in really good condition. A little over the budget, but squeeze it in somewhere else. If you saved a little money on the speakers or the turntable side of things, you can certainly still squeeze this in. So it's, in range. Here's a Pioneer SA9100 integrated amp. Beautiful, beautiful. I love this series, and I think it's such a classic. In a way, it does remind me a little bit of the Yamaha from this sort of similar time frame, but has its own Pioneer distinction to it. And this one comes with the original box, which is always a benefit if you can find an original box and materials. Typically, that means most of the time that I found that the original owner took care of it. If they were diligent enough to hang on to that box for all this time, they were most likely going to take care of their unit. So this one looks like it's in great condition, which wouldn't be a complete shock. All right, so let's take a look at the system I put together from my own collection for this theoretical exercise we're going through. Last week, I think I probably selected pieces that could have been found for a good bit less than the budget, even if you got lucky. So this week I decided to not make an assumption that it was going to be at budget, but that you could probably find some of these items in your local area a little less. So that means if you looked online, some of these might be at budget or just a little bit higher, because I think if you're going to look locally, you can certainly find better pricing than online pricing. So I thought it was kind of a cool system. I think a lot of people would be extremely happy with these components. But of course, again, as I always recommend, find what you can find locally and pick the ones that best meet your needs. So let's start off with the speakers. There's a full review out there on these. These are the JBL 4411, and they're a stellar speaker. If you have these, I think you'll be exceptionally pleased. They do a lot of things right, and I think most folks, especially if you're a JBL fan, if you're a JBL fan at all, then I think you'll be more than ecstatic about these. But anyway, theoretical exercise. But the 4411s is what I chose for this setup. And I think I've seen the prices range anywhere from around $900 to around $1,200. But again, if you find them, locally. By the way, if you do find them online locally, you didn't hear me say it, but you can certainly try to reach out to the owner and suggest a cash offer. If they're online, they're paying on online fees, right? So they might be willing to go down and, you come and get them, pay them cash, etc. So anyway, the 4411 is what I've got in this configuration. To pair up with it, it's a beautiful, beautiful integrated amplifier, the Sansui AU719. This is an 80 watt unit, and I think I love this series. I'm kind of partial to Sansui, but I very much like this particular series. Looks like it just came out yesterday, honestly. It's got the black with white lettering, and I think they just look awesome. Great performers, and has a lot of nice functionality to it. Not, they didn't shortcut them or shortchange them anywhere, and I think you'll very much like this particular unit. Whether you put this system together or not, it's a really nice unit to look for. These are right at budget for the most part. Again, a little bit over in a lot of cases. These used to sell anywhere from around $500 to $650 around for a very long time, but prices have continued to eke up a little bit. So they're running about $700 to $900 now. You might see some a little even more expensive depending on if they've had restoration, but very, very nice unit. To go with that, it's my JVC QL Y66F, and this is an exceptionally good full-blown automatic from JVC. It was their highest top-of-the-line fully automatic JVC of the time frame. These are the mid-80s. I think these were from around 85 to 88 time frame. So, right at the end what I would say would be the peak of the turntable as far as how it related to record sales. It seemed to peak sort of in that time frame. And they threw everything in the kitchen sink at it with technology in this table. Beautiful table, and anything that could have been added to it as far as technology, I think they pretty much did it. But these will range anywhere from the budget of around $750 and higher. So this sort of just barely ekes into the budget, but again, it would be something that you could find if you get a little bit lucky and do some deals with the negotiating, I'll say, with the seller. But I think this is an exceptional table. It's one of my favorites. I have a few tables that I just sort of lean into often and rotate them around, and this is one of my favorites. So not enough can be said about this particular model. But anyway, this is my theoretical $2,500 system, and I think a lot of people would be extremely happy with this combination. But anyway, it was fun, exercise. Let me know what your thoughts are and what you guys would, in that kind of budget, what would you put together? If you have that kind of budget, if you could find every piece you wanted, what would it be? What would you have put together if you could access and find every piece you wanted to in that price range? What would it be? Also, if you've got some thoughts around the equivalent of this in a new system, what would that be, and how much budget would you need to get to this level of performance? I'd be very interested in hearing your thoughts on that. So I think that'll do it for this week. Hope it was fun. I'm still toying with the idea of taking it to another level and going up. Maybe there's a $5,000 level, and then maybe there's an unlimited after that. I don't know. I'm still thinking about a next video. There are some extremely high-end units that I haven't shown yet, but so I'm still, maybe it's something for a future episode. Anyway, let me know your thoughts, how you like this episode. If you did like it, give us a thumbs up, and if you don't want to miss the next video, hit subscribe. And as always, thank you guys for tuning in.